Yes, it's that time again for another update video, another walk around the yard, the fleet update, the yard news, etc. And that now means that the last update video was so long ago, I can't even remember what was going on. In fact, I've just had to have a quick look through the video list of bollocks and stuff, you know, just to see what cars were current at the time. And I can tell you this, everything has changed. Starting off with Auntie Sophie. In the previous video, Auntie Sophie was here, but it didn't work, and it never did work. I'd had it for almost a year at that point, and I was just getting a bit frustrated with it. I tried to sell it, somebody tried to buy it, but then discovered that they couldn't buy it because they had nowhere to put it, etc. And then eventually something happened. I did the emergency access code once again, and this time it worked, and I had the thing running. I was driving the car around. I was absolutely chuffed to bits. But that was then, and this is now. And that then didn't even last very long, whereas this now is going on for ages again. Now we have it it's dead again. For some reason it decided to just completely stop working, and the electrics went all over the place, and that's why this window is open here. The sunroof is sort of taped closed, but it's kind of pointless trying to stop the water from getting in there when it's getting in there anyway. So what next? I don't know. Windsor Davis. Windsor Davis is a Rover 623 that we acquired some months back. And you see, since the last update, there has been an awful lot of cars, mostly coming and some going. This being one of them. This 623 is a lovely car. 623 automatic. And that is the top of the range of the 600 cars. And we have a buyer for it as well. There's just one small problem. The ABS sensor. No, not the sensor. One of the ABS sensors. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, one of them. That one, in fact. They're very, very difficult to come by. And so far we haven't come by one. And so that's why it's not got an MOT. But it will have. It will have quite soon. What we're looking at here is not the return of Michael Jackson. No, this one is called Janet Jackson. Same colour, obviously. Different engine, same interior. More or less. Janet Jackson, of course, obvious name, isn't it, really? Now, this is a proper pre-project drive Rover 25 diesel, which runs, it drives, it does all the things that you need to do, except have an MOT. And in order for it to have an MOT, it's going to need to be welded on both sills. Now, a Allegro man can do that. You know Allegro man, don't you? Yeah. And at some point, quite soon, hopefully, that will be happening. Here we have a car with no name. Sounds daft, doesn't it? It is, but I decided that it shouldn't have a name because I couldn't think of one straight away. For some reason, no name jumped out at me and it became the no name car. But the no name car from Blackpool is actually a rather good little car. It's a 214 with a lovely sweet engine, and it drives very well, as they often do. Also could do the wash now, but it's not mouldy inside, which is a good thing. And it's not even starting to go mouldy. It does look pretty much like all Rover R8s, 214s, isn't it? Night fire red, hatchback, this kind of interior. It is for sale, and nobody's bought it. I've only had one person asking to swap it, and that's not probably likely, is it? Will it start? Yeah, it will. The next car I have to show you is something of a curiosity. Curious? Yeah. Curious because it's not the kind of car you'd expect me to go out and buy. It is a Hyundai Amica, or as we know, some people call it Hyundai. Don't know what they call that bit though. It has a boot. It has 4 doors. It has a bit of mould developing already, and It also has an automatic gearbox and a 1.1 litre engine. It's tinny, it's unsafe, it's slow, it's probably not even that good on fuel, and it's definitely not good on tax. It's rubbish, it's ugly, but I like it. Other people will like it as well, but not for the same reasons that I like it. I like it because it's an underdog. I mean, this is a proper underdog. I mean, it just does its job properly without really complaining about anything, and I did a review on this car because of exactly that. Now, the only thing is, it does need the rear brake sorting out, and I just haven't got around to doing it yet. I did plan on doing it today, but I ended up making this video. It's funny, it's quirky. It has a center console that looks like Darth Vader's face, and it starts like a sewing machine would. Inside the lockup of dreams, yes, we have this rather wonderful Rover 420 GSI Tourer. This is my car. This is properly my car. The last time I made a video, this wasn't entirely my car, but now it is, and I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy indeed. And it's still lovely, and it passed its MOT just the other week, and it's not been out of here since. And it probably won't go out for another month, maybe 2 months. So you might say, what is the point? What is the point in having it MOT'd just to sit in the lockup not being used? Well, there's plenty of point. It's not going to deteriorate whilst it's sat in here doing nothing, is it? It's not going to go rusty whilst it's sat in here not doing anything. The only thing it could do with doing is being a bit more washed so that it doesn't collect as much scratches off the dust. But besides that, I am very happy to still have this car, except that I would like to sell it. And I'd like to sell it because I don't really use it. But then again, if I did use it, I probably wouldn't want to sell it. So I do have a bit of a problem, a very big problem with this car, where I don't know what to do. I really don't, and that's the truth. Whilst we're in the lockup, we may as well talk about it and what may have changed here. Well, that's the same. That's the same. That's a headlining. This is the same. There's an engine, half an engine just there. There's a new bike that's only here for me to sell. I have a new socket set, courtesy of Neil. I have a rather different arrangement of shelving inside the lockup. I even have some Rover overalls over there, but they don't fit. They're too small. I have committed the sin of having an empty shelving unit, empty at the bottom, nothing significant at the top, and with a clock that I made myself that isn't real. And then over here we see the Peugeot bike. Yes, my bike. The bike I've had for years. The most reliable form of transport I have ever known. Not getting rid of that. And the shelving continues with this set over here that was, and kind of still is, the idea of having car parts that will sell. New parts, good parts, the kind of things that I can ask some decent money for, at least the kind of things that somebody will eventually buy. Over here, keyboard still in the same place, of course. Fridge still in the same place. Why wouldn't it be? But one of the best new additions to the lockup is the wind chime with the forklift truck. How smart is that? The kettle remains, these shelves remain, the microwave is in the same place, as is this grill. But I do have a fish tank over here, which is running. The water's being heated, and it's also being pumped around, but there's no fish in there. We also have something I made recently, which was the kind of Christmas tree of American cars, and that came in yesterday morning, found it broken, which is pretty disappointing. Directly outside the lockup we still find Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson is of course not my car. This is Boaty's car. Boaty's car that refuses to do its job properly. It's had some work done on this area of the car by a chap called Neil, and since then it's decided that the fob and the immobiliser don't want to talk to each other any longer. Volkswagen Golf TDI. Yes, another unusual choice. The Volkswagen Golf TDI. TDI stands for tedious, innit? And it is. It's not an interesting car at all, but it works and it's for sale, so somebody needs to buy it. It has, however, given me cause to do a car review. It has given me cause to compare this against the Rover 45 diesel, and can you guess which one I like the best? It's not a bad car, it's just a car, it's just what can you say? You know, actually the thing is, when I climb into a Rover, I find myself talking. When I climb into a Volkswagen, I find myself climbing back out again and going over to a Rover. Parked almost next to the Golf is this car, Fred the Shed. This is a car I like. Relatively new to the fleet, Fred the Shed. So called because it's a Rover 75 diesel automatic connoisseur SE that somebody wasn't looking after too well. Not just there, but on the roof as well. Look at the state of that, and on the bonnet as well. The paint is horrendous. It's just an old car, surely that's perfectly forgivable. Yeah, it is. It was the inside really that caused me to name this car Fred the Shed, because it was absolutely minging in there. Yes, I mean, it's not looking too good again now, because actually good old Fred here has been used, as you can see, with its tow bar of choices taken away from you to tug around cars that won't tug around themselves, and it was doing a very, very good job at it. In fact, I would say it was doing a wonderful job of it, and I grew to really like this car. And I've never been a fan of the 75. Actually, I have. I used to like them, then I got fed up with them. I got fed up with all the clunking and the nastiness that goes on with the suspension, but I forgave it with this one, even though it has knackered suspension, because it was doing such a good job. It was so humble about it, and it has the potential to be a rather nice car. And it became my mission to make this a nice car one day, just not 2 days. But then, of course, it went wrong. It stopped working. It was something I couldn't quite fathom out. And then, rather embarrassingly, but conveniently, it did turn out to be running out of diesel. Embarrassing. But the trouble is, it's not just running out of diesel, it's running out of the potential to use diesel, because once it runs out, all it wants to do is just try and run on air, and that doesn't work. And that's why they don't start again, because you've got to bleed the system, which is what well, a friend of mine and another friend of mine and myself actually did, and now it works again, and I'm over the moon, and I've got plans for this car. Plans, so many plans that some of them may come off. They will do. They will do. Oh yes. Then we have the rather mysterious Rover 800 Sterling, which in a previous video I explained what it was doing here and when it should be going. But it's still here, and just like this Caravan, there are no plans for it to go. Except I'd quite like that one to go, because I would like the space instead. I think this car should be bought by a lad called Alex Toft. Because look at that registration, eh? That's what it says, isn't it? It is a 25, of course, in British Racing Green. Recently acquired from Coventry or somewhere like that. I can't even remember. It looks just like another car that we have called Dented Doris, which I will show you later on. It's the same colour, same amount of dents, pretty much in the same places as well, except that this one has got alloy wheels and leather seats. And I'm going to tell you something, I actually forgot that it's got leather seats right up until now. I'm not kidding, honestly I did, I completely forgot. But right, so of course this is a 25 1.4, so it does what all Rover 25 1.4s do, and that is to be happy to go for a drive. So why has this one been sat for so long in the corner? Well, two reasons. One is that the V5 hasn't arrived just yet, and the other is that I forgot it was here. Now, unlike Doris, this isn't a pre-project drive car. It doesn't have the nice dash, it doesn't have the nice carpet, it has the changing clocks and bits here and stuff like that. But will it start? That's the thing. Yes, and it started very well. A lovely smooth engine. I think it's time we got this one up for sale. V5 or not, don't care. It's going up for, I'm not sure. I can't remember. How much should it be? Boaty! I was about to say that I finished in that corner, but I haven't, because there's a red one there, and there's also that Freelander, which I need to explain. And not only that, if we look a little bit further over here, we can see that there is an MGF just there. An MGTF, in fact, that's there, and has been for quite a while, and hopefully will be finding its new home quite soon. And it should do, because its new home was decided over a year ago, and that is in the hands of Mr. Steve Berry, who has paid for it as well, but just hasn't managed to collect it just yet. The reason's ever so slightly complicated, but I shall explain it anyway, because it's quite simple. And that is that he come along, he made his mind up about the car, said yes, I'm going to have that, and then in the meantime the clutch arm seized on it, meaning you couldn't put it into gear. He came back with another chap who tried to fix it, and he couldn't. And then he said, I'll come back with a trailer, and he didn't. And then he came back with somebody else with a trailer, but the chap who had the trailer didn't turn up. So the last time I had a meeting with Steve was eating a whole packet of biscuits here, 2 cups of tea each, and waiting for this chap to turn up. So it's not Steve's fault, it's somebody else's. But he could do with getting somebody else onto it, that's what I reckon. 2.5 years ago, I went on a grueling 600-mile round trip in a Transit, which later turned out to have no brakes, to pick up a car from Kent with a man who couldn't even pour a cup of tea properly. That car is over there. In the last one of these videos, this car wasn't in my possession at all. But now it is, and it has been for months. So let me tell you, let me have a little recap on this. This is the pre-production Rover 45 with the green carpets and seats and door cards, etc., and the CVT gearbox. And it's a very nice car. I bought it back with a full MOT, and now it's probably lost about 4 of those months. It went straight up for sale, and I had somebody very interested in buying it, a chap called Lee, who then discovered he couldn't insure it, which was a bit strange because he has full no claims and he's a middle-aged man. I mean, insurance is pretty bad these days, isn't it? But that's rather surprising. Anyway, he was buying it, and then he said he couldn't buy it until after Christmas, and then he's accidentally blocked me. So Lee, if you happen to be watching this video, just unblock me. You can still buy the car. And now let's take a moment to talk about something quite different. A few months back, I set about with this mission to clear the yard and the lockup up and make them much more usable and much more acceptable. The landlord was talking about me possibly having to downsize my space a bit because he's having some containers over there, and they should be arriving in a couple of months. And with this, I found myself in a position where I had to suddenly think about what I have knocking about. And with that, I started trying to get rid of some cars in the yard and then replacing them with twice the amount that I started off with. And as you can see, there is no shortage of cars in the yard. However, with this in mind, I decided I should sacrifice some car parts, the kind of parts that weren't really selling, in order to make space in here. So when we open the lower lockup of eternal damnation, we find a car in here. A car called Harry Seacombe. If you're familiar with the old videos, but not the new ones, then there is a possibility that you recognise this car from being stuck in the corner, not working for about a year. And that's because this rather delightful Rover 600 was here before, and then it got sold, and then it got fixed, and then it got bought back. Yeah, I sold it to a man called Daniel, who took it away, fixed the fuel pump, got it MOT'd, and did a bit of work on the exhaust where the cat had been stolen. He also replaced the belts. It also had a new rear quarter put in where it had gone rusty, and a new bonnet because the old one was indeed rather rusty indeed. The only thing is, this was a white bonnet which didn't look particularly good, but I resprayed it with rattle cans and it's turned out okay, and now it's covered in leaves. The same goes with the rear quarter over there. That was primered and now it's red. It took me quite a bit of work to clear out this lockup enough to actually fit a car inside, but I didn't stop there. I did it so there could be two cars put inside here, and the other one is Doris. Here we have it, Dented Doris, the Rover 25 1.4, called Dented because it is covered in dents everywhere, and was bought because it was cheap, because it was dented and the MOT was about to run out. It seemed like a bit of a gamble, but Boaty and I went off to Wales, North Wales, Llandudno to be precise, where we collected this car, and I drove it back. And this car drives absolutely perfect. On the outside it looks terrible, on the inside it's perfect. Took it for its MOT and it passed without even an advisory. But unfortunately, like so many other things here, collecting so many cars means just things get neglected, and it's been sat there with its MOT being used up doing nothing. So today or tomorrow, one of those days, this is going to come back out. It's going to get photographed, it's going to go up for sale as is. The lockup cars. To get these two cars out though, now I've got to move all of this lot, which has been placed here as a matter of convenience whilst other parts of the yard have been getting tidied up. And when the next car goes, which should be today at about 12:30, there'll be room for more than one car to move around, and that's because this particular car can't move by itself for two very good reasons. Those two very good reasons happen to be because the front suspension is not properly connected, and underneath the bonnet we don't find an engine to propel it anywhere. The car I'm talking about, of course, is Eric. Recently crashed in the last update video. Now it's just as crashed, but with quite a few bits missing off of it. I'll show you. The main inconvenience really is the sunroof not being present, because that was taken out, and then all of the door seals were taken out to try and help fix a car called Michael Jackson, and that didn't work, but it did help it get damp. The front wings were taken off and used for another car. The engine was taken out because the gearbox had to come out, which is going for another car. The wheels, the alloy wheels, were taken off, and they've been bunged on Nigel for the moment. And then of course there is the ECU, the Chaz Lee ECU, that made this little car so much more exciting. That has now gone into another car, which I will explain in a bit. Cars left in winter in a yard will get damp because of the cold. Cars left in the winter with no sunroof will get even more damp, like this one has, and I believe you'll find a puddle in the back there somewhere. It's not as bad as I thought, but it's still... Oh, can I reuse those? Looks like I can actually. Yes, let's keep those. It still saddens me really to see this car in this state, because I made it my own. Was just a humble Rover 25, but with a few tweaks here and there, even calling it Roveric, which was somebody else's idea, it just made it special. And today it's going, and I will be glad to see it go, because it's properly the end of that chapter. Plus it will free up some space, and because it doesn't move anywhere, that space is much bigger than it should be, that it's actually using up. I'm not choosing to talk about the cars that have gone this time, quite simply because after 4, nearly 5 months, there are too many of them. And many of these cars have come and gone in that time as well, without you seeing them if you don't watch my videos. So it seems a bit pointless, with the exception of Barney, I suppose, because Barney the Streetwise was a car that I did like an awful lot. I bought it, and then in a time of need I sold it to the company for what I paid for it, and then Boaty took it on, and then Boaty's now done a deal with Barney, so Barney's now gone anyway. Oh shite, oh gosh, that hurt. Oh, that was genuine, that as well, it wasn't put on. Ow. There are 2 other cars to talk about that aren't in the yard today because they're at home. The reason they're at home is because of space, and they're taxed, so they may as well just be on the road. But I can't drive 3 cars into work just to show you what I have. The first of these is the one I picked up the other day, which I've named Johnny Crook. Johnny Crook is a lovely example of a Rover 25 that is almost entirely pre-project drive. It is a 1.4 in Wedgwood blue, bought from Team Hairy Snid, that was saved a good few months back. I put it up for sale straight away without even bothering doing any repairs on it at all, and that's why it's hopefully going soon. And then we have a car called Prince Andrew, which ideally I would like to be here today because it's a great car. I picked it up from Scunthorpe from my friend Richard, where I did a trade-in from Eric's fuel pump for this car and a few other bits. It's a Rover 45 Connoisseur in the best colour, I think, of silver, with alloy wheels of course, and red leather interior, red carpets and red door cards. Unfortunately, Richard decided that he really wanted those bits, so he swapped them all out for his own car before handing it over. If only he didn't like red things, he probably would have left it alone. But that's how it goes, isn't it? I certainly am not in a position to complain. The car has 4 months MOT and drives perfectly well. It's just that the back seat doesn't fit. The car does need a service, so for the moment it's not been getting a great deal of use. But what I did do is bung in that Chasley ECU to fire the thing up somewhat, and by crikey blimey Charlie it has. It's made it a rather exciting wedgy, non-wedgy saloon box on wheels that you could possibly imagine. A Rover 45, a granddad's car with some spirit. It's great, I like it. What's next? Well, what's next isn't even a car, but a caravan. Yes, the caravan, George Roger Botti. Mr. George Roger Botti, Georgie, which was acquired from somewhere and then brought back to the yard. Left it here where this Sterling happens to be, and then I felt like it was kind of not in a particularly good place whilst it's overlooking houses, so I used Zomberic, or Eric at the time, to tug the caravan over here into the corner, and you will have seen that video if you've seen it, with the idea that this corner is going to be reclaimed. The plan to remove the caravan altogether came in, but then that plan got brushed aside because we decided that we wanted to keep it, but we needed to move it, so we did. We used a different car this time. We used a car called Fred the Shed to move the caravan from just there to there, where Fred then had to tug out some other cars and then broke down. Over Christmas, of course, the yard was a rather discomforting place. Everything was all over the place, as it is now, but even worse. So we used another car, which was a Land Rover, to get it from here to just where the red one down there with no name is before it got stuck. And then we had to use a different Land Rover, one that had four-wheel drive, to finish the job off. And finally, George Roger Botti is in its final resting home at the bottom of the yard here. It's a bit more awkward to get to in some ways. It's not entirely finished with. We will make some efforts to decorate this van make it more homely, make it our sales office, which we've used it as the sales office only a couple of times so far. It's a bit grotty, and Boaty will be cleaning it up next time he turns up. It would also be a fantastic idea to use some of the bricks laying around the yard to make a path, so that you don't have to walk in the mud. George Roger Botti has proven himself just recently to not really be that fit for purpose on the roads anyway. For some reason, both of the rear wheels went completely flat and won't stay pumped up. The jockey wheel kind of broke, and then this handle broke off as well. Not surprising, it's not exactly held on, but it looks like it's held on by some sort of glue actually. Underneath the big silver cover, there's a big green car owned by a man called George. Now normally I would peel off this and have a look inside, but recently George turned up and he's been inside. He's been testing the electrics, all of these kind of things, and he can confirm that there are no 1980s rock stars such as Joey Tempest residing inside there, so I simply don't really need to look myself. Besides that, there'd be evidence of food, wouldn't they? And now, walking across the yard, walking across the yard, walking across the yard again, walking across the yard to the other side, where we find another car I haven't mentioned yet. Could it be that one? No. Or this one? No. Or that one? No. It's this one. Okay, this. A Land Rover Freelander TD4. What a cool car. It's in HSE trim, which means it has leather. Yes, leather and electric windows and stuff, and it's all rather almost completely nice. It's got good wheels, it's got roof rails, it has a few additional things like unnecessary stickers and light guards, etc. But I'm not bothered about that. What I am bothered about is the other problems with this car. Oh yes, yeah, I don't just buy a car without problems, do I? No. No. When I ask about a car, I'll say, has it got any problems? And if they say no, I say, all right, well, forget it then. And then what I do, I ask, has it got problems? Yes, it's got loads. Oh, brilliant, I'll come and buy it. That would be the impression you would get from me, although it's not entirely true. The problems aren't really major, and it does have loads of MOT, but there's a really severely nasty knock on the suspension. Start it up. And it has an uneven idle, and that's because it does have a bit of a smoky issue. The Freelander, which I have named James, does smoke a bit like a 1970s comedian, and Boaty loves it. Whilst we're at this end of the yard, we may as well talk about the almost final car, which is this car here, Peter Torville. If you're not a fan of fast cars, projects, messed about with thingies, or northern men with beards, you may not have actually seen what's going on with this car. Otherwise, you'll know it is the 500 brake horsepower Rover 25 project that is ongoing at the moment. Currently, there's no engine inside it or gearbox, but that's about to change quite soon. Tom, typical name for a young man who likes cars, has done much work with this so far. He's acquired the engine, he's acquired the turbo, he's fitted the turbo, he's done all of the bits. Now, of course, there's wiring looms and gearboxes and things like that to deal with. And inside we find a great mass of hairy wires everywhere, where he's doing a job to make these work so you can change gear on the steering wheel, which might seem like a really rather strange thing, because after all, it's a manual car with a shifty thingy right next to your left knee. But that's what it is at the moment, and that's what it will be once the engine goes back in. But the long-term plan is for it to have an Audi DSG gearbox put in there, and that's why it's needed a custom-built ECU and a plate as well, which has been made. There's an awful lot that's gone into this car, an awful lot for a car that doesn't currently work. And now we are almost at the end of this particular video, where I have saved the best car till last. And you know what it is, don't you? Because there's only one car I haven't mentioned, and you know it's my favourite car, and it can only be the number 42. Yes, Nigel. Nigel, of course, is still in my possession. It always will be. At least I presume it always will be. It is still my favourite car, and I still enjoy it and love the thing as much as I ever did do. In fact, more so. It must be more so because I still have it. And there are plenty of cars that I really do really like, but I've sold them. But I couldn't sell this one. I couldn't sell it. Partly because nobody would buy it. But I found out that to be incorrect. Yesterday on my live stream, I asked if I really needed, would anybody buy this car? And about 5 or 6 people said they would do. But that's not entirely true. I mean, these wheels are different. Gone are the 16-inch wheels that made it ever so slightly uncomfortable, because I like these ones. And the other ones look a bit better, but it drives better with these. All of the panels are the same as they were before. I'm sure that that grille was put on before the last update as well. The interior is exactly the same, it just needs a jolly good clean. But I do have a replacement steering wheel. I had it sent to me a while back. It's exactly the same as this, but less worn out, and I just haven't got around to fitting it yet. The headlining, of course, is still as saggy as it ever was, and everyone keeps on going on at me I should replace it, but I just don't really care. I'm not bothered about that. I'm not bothered for 2 reasons. One is that it's not going to get any worse, and the other is that there's always something with this car that means it's not entirely finished, and I don't want it to be entirely finished. Here there is a Tahiti blue tailgate, which I have toyed with the idea of actually fitting, but I just don't know. I just don't know. I genuinely think that if I put another tailgate on here in a different colour, it might just be a little bit over the top. Nigel's done a fair few miles since the last update, and I did have to replace the thing under there. Yeah, that thing. What's it called? That what's it called thing, because it was losing coolant. Only gradually to start with, but the thermostat housing are prone to leaking on these, and eventually it was running out quite badly around the MOT time. So I had to just do it, and it wasn't even a difficult job, and now it's all fine. It's also had a remap. Yes, Tom did a remap on it, and I can't really tell if it's made much difference. And a centre section of exhaust which started to fall apart. Besides that, it's all the same. Actually it's not, because it's got a mark there where I did catch it against the inside of the lockup trying to cram it into the corner, which is a bit unfortunate, but it's what happens when you do silly things, isn't it? In the next Nigel video I shall replace that steering wheel and do something about these light seals, because I still don't have a carpet in the boot. I don't have a carpet in the boot because it just gets drenched, and it's just down to the light seals. I haven't got around to doing it, and I should do. I've got some material. Senior Mustard's got some material I can use, and I shall be doing that very soon. And that is the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being a channel member. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for whatever it is you do. A big thank you to anyone who managed to watch it all the way through without skipping. Thank you for anyone that doesn't skip the adverts. Thank you, just thank yous all round, but more thank yous for certain types of people. Just thanks.